Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 41 of Deep in the Novo. I'm your host, Ryan Novozinsky, joined here, as always, by my counterpart, Sudeep Tumma, the sports editor for the Okali. And today we're going to be reviewing OSU's 70-54 victory over the Kansas State Wildcats, sort of a palate cleanser victory after what was a pretty devastating loss to the West Virginia Mountaineers, obviously, but OSU able to rebound easily, and I mean that literally and figuratively in this game. They rebounded. Sudeep, do you think that this was sort of a good win to happen after what was a pretty devastating loss for the team?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you kind of start with this. Kansas State, to begin the year, obviously looked like the worst team in the Big 12, has been the worst team in the Big
Mhm.
12 without question. They've also been a little bit better than they appeared in the beginning of the season. They've gotten together a little bit. You have some playmakers there, some talented guys. And in general, it just shows the depth of the Big 12, right? That top to bottom is much like the Trae Young year, where top to bottom, every single team is so good, right? Even Iowa State, which was the worst team in the Big 12 in 2017, what was the year? And still, in any given night, Iowa State could beat Kansas, right? It was that kind of thing, and the Big 12 again looks like that sort of year. So again, no nights off in the Big 12, and this is a game where Mike Boynton and his team could go in, grab a victory, get confidence back, get back on track, and it's been a good sign for the whole season that this team, it's not just like, oh, they lost badly because they're playing really good teams. They've been competitive in every single game. A couple possessions go, even 1-2 possessions go a different way, and this is an undefeated team, right? But that's what happens when you play close games, and it's good for a young team to really realize and understand how to play it, because those close games are the ones that matter, especially when you get deeper in.
Yeah, and at 9-3 right now, OSU is doing a pretty good job. Obviously, not necessarily in the Big 12 yet, but the record is improving. And as you said, the Big 12 is neck and neck this year. It's going to be one of those suffocating years for this league, and any of these teams, I feel like from top to bottom, can get a top 15 victory on any given night.
Yeah, right. That's the crazy part. I mean, this team should have gotten a top 15 victory, right,
Yeah.
against West Virginia in a game where it looked like they were going to handily win, right? They were up almost 20 points. I mean, 19-point lead is hard to squash, right? Obviously they
Yeah.
did, but it was one of those things. But I mean, 2-3, it looks like it's deceiving, right? If you
Mhm.
just look at the records, you've never watched a Big 12 game, then yeah, it looks like, oh yeah, Oklahoma State's toward the bottom. But it hasn't been like that at all, right?
No.
The competitiveness in each and every game for a young team that's, I guess, trying to figure it out in some sense is really impressive so far.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at this team going forward, and it's there's some improvements there. Obviously, in the Kansas State game, specifically, when you talk about the threes that happened in this game, they all came at a perfect time. Okay, and what I mean by that is whenever OSU was trying to build momentum, almost every single time. Okay, in the first half, it was Ice, I believe, started it off with that rare three from him at the top of the key, but then Rondell Walker. I mean, this guy was on fire from long range the other day, and was hitting him at crucial times. It almost seemed like when OSU would be have like an 8-point lead at one point, or like a 9-point, or on the verge of breaking through double digits, which is a big morale boost if you can get through to that double digit lead. Rondell Walker would always hit a three and put them over to not only being up 8, but going from 8 to 11, going up from 9 to 12, and really just being a huge momentum swinger. And it's a testament to whatever he was, how his shooting has gone all season. He's had some of these clutch shots. He's hit them at proper times, and his teammates have found him wide open, and it's really paid dividends for this OSU team so far.
When you look at this team, when you look at this rotation to what it's slimmed down to, I think there's three guys that you can count on to be volume 3-point shooters. The rest, most of them are efficient, right?
Mhm.
Efficient doing enough. But the three guys are Cade Cunningham, right?
Right.
A guy who you obviously don't want him to shoot 10 threes, right? Because
Mhm.
he's so good at going inside. He's so good at doing other things. But he's a guy where if he's taking 10 open threes or 10 threes that he decides are good shots, you could feel confident. Bryce Williams, same thing. If he shoots 5, 7, 9 threes even, you feel confident. Rondell Walker, another guy, right?
Yeah.
But after that, it was Isaac Likely who's gotten better. Avery Anderson who's getting better. And before anything, let me start by saying this. If I hear someone else mention that Avery Anderson is 2 from 26 from 3 last year, I'm gonna lose it. But anyway, he's gotten better, right? And when I talk about those two guys, I mean those are, and then you talk about those kind of guys. You have a couple of those guys who are doing just enough from three but are so good at getting inside, right, and breaking down the defense. They can pass, they can drive, they can dribble drive, they can pass out of the drives, they can post. I mean, some of these guys can post up, right? You got different skill sets, but they're so the shooting is just supplemented that, right? So you talk about a guy like Avery Anderson who's so quick, so good in the mid range. If he can just do enough from three, it makes defenses respect it. So he only needs to take one or two threes sometimes, maybe zero threes, maybe three threes.
Yeah.
But as long as he can keep up, a consistent, solid percentage, him and Isaac Likely, then you're doing a much better job. And when you watch this Kansas State game, it was interesting because I mean, you look at that percentage, 42%, 6 for 14 from three. It's a really good percentage, right? But
Yeah.
it was the way these threes are shot. They weren't forcing things. You saw the ball reversal was really good. The passing moving around the 3-point line, and then guys driving in and attacking the rim. But also when they passed out to and didn't take too many threes. They didn't force up bad shots. So you have, I think, Avery Anderson, Isaac Likely only taking a few threes, but even those threes, they weren't hesitating. They weren't saying, okay, this is the last possible shot on the shot clock. Let me just take it because I have to. It was within the flow. It felt like, if you didn't know better, these guys are good 3-point shooters. They may have been mid shot clock, right? They may have been somewhere along the way, but they were good threes. They were in rhythm, and they weren't like this. I think this is where my point wants to be: 14 threes. But it's not just the number; it's the way they were shot. It was like, okay, yeah, let's take some of this, mix it in with the driving, and that's kind of how you get the ball philosophy. But what I'm trying to get at is that it was a timeliness of threes, the way that they took them, how they took them. Obviously, the percentage and the production of the threes
Yeah.
is just output to how they took those threes and how that. I mean, it helped the whole thing where you hit down. I mean, like I said, you only want to take 14 threes. And normally it's a bad thing, but I mean, you'd think, okay, a team like this take more threes, and then you'll open up the inside. But with how good these guys are, you don't just have one Cade Cunningham and four shooters around you. You have usually 4 or 5 playmakers. I mean, you think about the starting lineup, right? From besides Matthew Alexander Moncrief, you think Bryce Williams, Avery Anderson, Cade Cunningham, Isaac Likely. Those are four essentially 4-point guards, right? And even if some guy like a Bryce Williams, who's more of a shooting guard, more of a two guard, he can still drive in all the same and create his own shot, right? You have
Yeah.
4 guys that can do that. So if you just make enough from three and you take those good shots, suddenly it opens up the driving lanes.
There's an incredible flow to this offense, right? And it was on full display against Kansas State. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was exactly. I mean, I do know what it was. It was exactly that. It was the flow of like you said, it creates opportunities. They can drive inside. They can dish it out. They can set up these opportunities for a guy like Avery Anderson, for a guy like Cade Cunningham, and some of these other high volume shooters. And guys that could be consistent with it. But then you mentioned too, I think it's important to have a guy like Isaac Likely, someone that can be that consistent guy. And from long range, it's super important. It spaces the floor. It gets things open. It gets these opportunities to keep going. And it's the reason that OSU was able to put up 70 points against a very talented Kansas State team, and that, in addition to, some of the rebounds and the high volume percentage of that, it was a great night all around for the OSU Cowboys. I mean, you look at it and statistically they dominated, and they dominated when you look at it from an analytical perspective as well. So,
yeah, no doubt, they really did.
Yeah, exactly. And how would you assess? Let's hone in on the rebounds a little bit. Just put the spotlight on that. How big was the rebounding in this game?
I think the rebounding is one of those key things that kind of goes under the radar. It's because your first mind is thinking. I mean, everyone's mind. First thing you see the score, you see the opponent. Your first thing is, oh, Kansas State. They should have handily beat them, right? There's a reason there's a 16-point victory. It wasn't like that. I mean, this team, Mike Boynton talked about at the beginning of the year how worried he was with the rebounding, which is
Yeah,
a valid concern for anyone, considering the personnel and the lack of height and depth at the big man position. But the guys that they have on this roster, you have so many guys who are good rebounders despite their stature. I mean, you can be a good rebounder at 6'5", as it likely shows. You could be Cade Cunningham just because you're a point guard. He's still 6'8". He's able to
sure.
grab boards. But it's the tenacity, it's the anticipation, it's the. I mean, you have a guy like Keelan Boone who's better rebounder than his brother Caleb Boone, right? Caleb Boone's got a serious wingspan.
That's one of my favorite
Keelan Boone's
things all season long. Is that his
right? And it's just
shorter.
it's that it's yeah, it's crashing the boards on offense too. I mean, how many times has Keelan Boone gone in on an offensive rebound, pulled it down, and created another shot opportunity?
Sure.
In this game, what I noticed early on was Kansas State. They didn't try to grab offensive rebounds. They really didn't, because I don't know what I think they must have been worried about the transition game, because as soon as a shot would go up, you saw 4 or 5 guys automatically run back. So you saw OSU grab a rebound and no purple was in sight.
Yeah.
And that made it easier on the defensive side, on the defensive rebounding side, because that can be a worry, right? When you have a smaller team, you can play really good defense, especially when rotating so much and playing help defense. You might get a guy out of position and not grab a rebound. And that's a lot of what happened to West Virginia, right? Where you had Derek Culver grab just so many rebounds. You had all these guys grab so many rebounds. But in this game, they were able to stabilize there. On offense, they were able to grab those extra opportunities that Kansas State wasn't really able to do. Again, Kansas State's not a very big team. Neither is
Mhm.
OSU, but OSU has those kind of rebounders. You think Matthew Alexander-Moncrief too, right? Guys that are good rebounders. Isaac Likely, who's essentially playing like a big man all season long.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing because it gave you extra opportunities. I mean, it's a cliche in basketball, but it's one of those things like if you win the rebounding or whoever wins the rebounding battle usually wins the game. It's not
Mhm.
100% true, but it's a good marker and it's a good mark for sure. And it does mean a lot. And it really went hand in hand with a lot of other aspects of this game.
For a team that doesn't have one of your traditional style big men, and you don't need that in modern basketball necessarily anymore. But man, for a team that lacks sort of that size, sort of that, I guess, girthiness, if you want to call it, to have Isaac Likely out there being able to, grab 9 or 10 rebounds on any given night, to have Matthew Alexander Moncrief, like you said, a guy who's taller, but a guy who's also same height as Cade, but he's obviously playing
Yeah.
forward down there, sometimes the center position. Um, and these are just guys each and every night. Keelan Boone, you can rely on them every night to get these rebounds. And to crash inside, and that's what's really getting them a lot of opportunities too. When they crash inside, they get these offensive rebounds, right? They're able to get these second chance opportunities. They're able to get to the free throw line, and they're able to do it with seemingly ease. And for a tough team like this to be able to do that, it's going to pay dividends for them going down in the rest of the season, because they can keep driving inside with relative consistency. They're going to draw a lot of fouls, and I'd assess that their free throw shooting is a whole heck of a lot better than it was that first game, a whole heck of a lot better. But when you look at this team, I mean, they're able to get it done, and they're able to create these sort of opportunities just by these rebounds. And like you said, it's a cliche, but sometimes it reigns true, and many
Yeah.
times for OSU it has in the season so far.
And it's important. The reason that statement is out there is because it just emphasizes that rebounding is important. And it's one of those things where I forget who said this, maybe Charles Barkley. You don't play defense. It doesn't matter how good of defense you play if you don't get the rebound. If you don't get the rebound, you didn't play defense. It's as simple as that. I mean, you might, force a bad shot, force a tough shot, play perfect defense, perfect technique, up on him, contested on a step back jumper where the guy's completely, you're draped all over him. But if you don't grab the rebound at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because a lot of times off offensive rebounds, you have really good angles and can put the ball up immediately. You can, this is Jay Billis who stresses out all the time about how the best three-pointer to take analytical wise is off an offensive rebound. It's
Yeah.
true. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You got to grab those rebounds. They're important, and it's good that this team is really doing it despite their size.
Yeah, 100%. This team is able to, do things like that, especially like you said, given the size situation, it's really impressive. Another thing that's impressed, you and I so far this season is this team's obviously ability to play defense, both in transition, both with setting up man or setting up the zone defense. What did you see, this team and their ability to defend against Kansas State? I mean, Kansas State early on, definitely it looked like they were a really hot perimeter team, but then it sort of imploded down there, shooting 6 for 24. It says here in the stat sheet, 25% for the game from three. How would you assess OSU against Kansas State and how they were able to put pressure on them?
Yeah, I thought OSU did a really good job. They went to a lot more zone in the second half, but
Yes.
I think that was another key, right? Force turnovers, live ball turnovers, get out in transition. Did that a couple times. They shut them down. I mean, defense is really the backbone for a lot of teams. Mike Boynton's been trying to establish that. I thought it was so key in this game how they played it, the strength they played. I mean, the rotations, the help. It was so crisp and it moved well. And yeah, I mean, you're right. Kansas State really faltered from three. It's one of the things I guess you can call OSU exposable to, but the
Hmm.
numbers are always deceiving because it's just the way they play, and it's like it's easier to give up a three than it is a layup until the three goes in. Then you look like an idiot. But I mean, I would go with my Boyd's philosophy. Like I'd rather a wide open three than a wide open layup, right?
Hmm.
And when you have a smaller team with smaller guys, you want to help and you want to get an offense out of sync because the number that doesn't show up is it's not even the turnovers, it's the out of syncness, the quality of shots, the passes that are never going to show up on a stat sheet, that are a little bit off because the way that you're hounding and harassing and pushing an offense out of sync. There might be a bad passer, and it might not result in a turnover, but it might just be a bad pass to a guy who's 6 feet away who's open, and you might throw it his hip instead of to his chest, and he's not able to get a good shot off. And those are the numbers that never show up, but that's the effect of this really good defense.
Yeah, and yeah, this defense, like you said, is applying pressure like that, and they're also, you know, they're forcing these guys to play out of their comfort zone. I mean, Kansas State, they're 5-8 on the season, or 5-9 now rather, and they're a team that hasn't had much consistency this year. But OSU really applying pressure, really making them play unlike they usually do, and that's what they've been able to do all season, just throwing teams off their momentum, right? Like, remember the beginning of the season when the big question was, oh, this perimeter defense is a huge problem, and that was because in transition it wasn't working. They weren't able to get set, weren't able to set, and there was like little holes in there that sort of were, I guess you can say, by design, because you don't have that much athleticism to get out there and reset on defense, and a lot of teams were capitalizing on that. But man, it's gotten better. I feel like they've gotten more defensively sound, and this zone defense, I think, like you said, down the stretch, OSU played a lot more zone. It looked fantastic. I think it does.
Yeah, and the zone really, it's another weird thing where you can't break, or you shouldn't break a zone by shooting threes, but you also need to shoot threes to be able to break a zone,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're not gonna just shoot your way out of zone if you're an opposing team on OSU. But also, if you are a good 3-point shooting team, those shots will come. They'll come throughout the flow of trying to break it. And if you play a zone, you're gonna leave 3-pointers open. And you want to play, and that's why the zone really worked well against a team like Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a good offensive team, really good offensive team. They
Mhm.
have some weapons, they have some good guys, but they're not the best 3-point shooting team. And times earlier this season, even through non-conference play, you're looking at teams like Oakland and Oral Roberts, who are not big names, who you think okay are not very good, but when you got that sort of 3-point shooting, 3-pointers are the ultimate equalizer. And you're right, it's almost like by design, because if you want to help on other things and double different things, you're going to leave some 3-pointers open. And then it was a combination of that and how good the 3-point shooting was from the other side, the degree of difficulty on a lot of those shots, and it just, you culminate it all together, and it ends up being a little odd. But
It is,
you're right,
yeah.
OSU is definitely playing well, really well on defense, and I think that was a big factor here.
A system that works for sure, and Mike Boynton's, implemented this defensive mentality into this team, and it's working out for them all season long. When you look at the other side of the ball, though, let me ask you this. This is, first of all, let me, as a disclaimer, this is not a criticism. I'm just simply throwing you a lob right now, because I know you're going to respond to it fantastically. Okay, if you had a guy like Zion Williamson, okay, and he went out there and he scored 5 points against Kansas State, what do you think ESPN would stop all their coverage and just talk about that? Don't you think? What makes Cade Cunningham different? What makes Cade Cunningham different to where it doesn't really, stop the presses whenever he scores 5 points?
Cade Cunningham is not your typical superstar, quote unquote Mike Boynton. But what it means is he's a different breed. This is such a good comparison to Draymond Green, where a lot of people are not going to see the value of a guy like that. But Cade Cunningham, again, he's again more talented than Draymond Green in a sense where he can shoot, he can score, he can get to the rim, he can do so many things. But he's also an elite playmaker. But his biggest attribute is IQ, his understanding of
Mhm.
pace and understanding rhythm, not just in the game, not just play to play, but on a holistic scope in a game like this where he sees the way they're playing and he sees the opponent and the way they're doubling him, he could just get the ball to a guy like Isaac Blakely, get the ball to a simple guy like that, and it looked very passive. It looked like he just handed it off to someone else, and it's like a holistic scope that you can understand. Okay, we just talked about not bashing a team like Kansas State, but by factual, they are not as talented as most teams you're going to see in the Big 12, right? So
Mhm.
in a game like this, you can hand the ball to Rondo Walker and Cade Cunningham, or to Isaac Likely and Caleb Boone in the post and different guys. Just let them get their confidence up. This is the IQ of him, because this is like seeing long range, long term understanding, not just um, in the game. Hey, he Bryce Williams is really hot right now. Let me hand him the ball. It's understanding that if these other guys get their confidence up, they'll be so much better down the stretch. And it's not that Cade Cunningham had a bad game, didn't have a good game, but he didn't have a bad game either.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw in the first half, he only took 2 shots, not because, I mean, again, 2 shots, not a lot of turnovers in the game. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't just like getting lost and just handing the ball to someone else. It's by design. He handed the ball to someone else, spread the floor. That's part of it too. Like you're one of those 5 guys. You got to spread the floor. Cunningham does that. He does all these things, and he doesn't take a lot of shots. He's fine. The one shot he took, I mean, was fine. It was great. And that's why he hit a three of a step back. It's one of those things. I mean, you let him work how he wants, and that's why there was really no complaints about it. It's fine because not only did you just win the game, but he understands pace to a ridiculous level, right?
Yeah.
Where he understands how the pace in which to move and where to go, sense of urgency. His IQ. This is what makes him different about when he goes to the NBA. I have rarely ever. I don't think I've ever seen someone who's this polished going into the NBA, right? Because his IQ and understanding, all the traits that make him special are the maturity that you usually see 5 to 10 to 15 years down the road for a lot of players. But he just has that sort of understanding, and he doesn't force bad shots. I mean, that's the main factor here. But when he does, he realizes that he has to. But when he doesn't, he knows that. And this is one of those games where he didn't have to, and it's just the next level understanding.
Cade Cunningham is one of the most calculated young basketball players I've ever seen. And you know what?
Yeah.
He's the perfect superstar. I'm going to give you a compliment right here, live on air. He's the perfect superstar for Sudeep Tumma to be covering while he's at his young college days. 100%, because he's a smart basketball player. He understands, like you said,
Yep.
understands pace to an unbelievable level. And not many people understand, the intricacies of what makes Cade so brilliant. That's why, you look at a guy who's a future number one overall pick potentially. You might think he's averaging what, 30 points a game in college.
Yeah.
He's averaging,
Right.
however many assists, however many rebounds, whatever. Cade Cunningham isn't necessarily like that. He'll probably get the assists, but man, if you calculated the passes to assists and the setup opportunities, that would be an insane margin,
He
and that would
sees,
be
yeah.
something that Sudeep Tumma would love.
It's like it's the hockey assist, but also the assist. Or sorry, the pass to the pass to the pass to the
Mhm.
pass, right? Or it's the, hey, let me throw it down the post right now because he's feeling himself, or he's in good position, or he's got a good matchup, or hey, let's hand it here, or okay, it's just the next level understanding. You see it in games early on where he knows when to drive in because even though he'll get doubled, he knows when the help is coming, but he knows how the help is coming, right? How many times have I said this? Not all help is created equal, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes when defenses help off, or sorry, they help on, there's no angle to pass, there's no angle to shoot. But he understands before even like driving in, he'll stop midway through a drive, or before he even drives in, he'll understand how the help is coming, the passing angles. Then he'll understand when he can attack because he can get to the rim, or there's a double coming, but he knows when the way the double's coming, there will be a pass. It's just next level, his understanding of that. And the fact that he get the ball out already before that happens, it's the play you don't see happen. It's the bad shot he doesn't take, the bad pass he doesn't make, the bad play he doesn't make, the bad decision he does not make.
Incredible analysis from Sudeep Tumma there. And honestly, when you think about it, yeah, it is all 100% true. Because I mean, this is just one of the most mature players that you can see from, on the college level, and he's NBA ready right now. If you put him in the NBA right now, he would develop into a very, very solid franchise player. Um, and you're seeing it also with Isaac Likely. You're seeing it where Cade Cunningham is at his best when he's controlling this offense, when he's letting his teammates work around him and do things that will make them better, but also that also goes and proves that Cade is also better.
Right.
It's an interesting, confusing system, but Isaac Likely is getting the great end of this. I mean, his draft stock I feel like is improving just because he's playing alongside Cade Cunningham. What did you see from him against Kansas State? And further on, this Ice and Cade dynamic that's just been a great dynamic duo all season long.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the way they play together. It's such a luxury that you don't always need Cade to be on ball, right? He's not like your point guard that you have to hand the ball to 40, 50, 60 possessions a game,
Yeah.
because you have a guy in Isaac Likely who can be your primary ball handler. And that doesn't mean he's always going to take the shot, always going to make the assist, but he can initiate the play. And then you can bring Cade Cunningham off of that. You can bring him off a curl cut. You can bring him off a screen, a pin down. You got so many different options. You can post up Cade Cunningham, and you have a point guard who has the IQ and feel to understand the ability to pass down to the post, know when to pass it, when not to pass it. That's an underrated thing, right? I mean, this is not as much a storyline in 2020 because big men, strong big men who post up all the time are dissipating. But an important thing for big men that people don't talk about a lot is your guards, and your guards' ability to get you the ball in the post is an important thing. And Isaac Likely has been so good because not only is he able to do all those things, obviously he's not the same guy that Cade is, but he's playing with incredible pace too. You don't see him out of control. He's such a strong guy who can probably ram people down if he doesn't, play under control. But he's able to understand the pace and the quality in which to play at, the timing, and his ability to go down there, be like that big man, that post up guy who can grab rebounds, who can play defense, who can grab steals, who can make such incredible plays. He's a leader out there, and his ability to score now. It's that aggressiveness that he's taking, his ability to go straight to the rim. It's opening up new opportunities as a passer as well, because you already knew he can pass, but now it's that opportunity that, hey, Cade's being doubled. I got much easier opportunities, and Cade's putting him in good position. Isaac likely is putting Cade in good position. It's a great dynamic back and forth there. But it's so important because when you have the way that teams are doubling Cade, or it's really gone down. That's the big thing. Since the beginning of the season, you're seeing less and less of that pressure. Teams are still going to shade Cade the way they still are. Bring a second guy, bring help defense often, but it's not happening. It's not the same. Their teams are not blitzing him the same way that teams blitzed Vivian Gray last year with the Cowgirls. The way that you saw it early in the season with Cade Cunningham, because Isaac Likely and obviously other guys, but Isaac Likely can take on such a role where he can be the primary ball maker, and Cade Cunningham can play secondary, like you saw against Kansas State.
Mhm.
And that's a scary thought going forward because that's going to really open up the whole team. And I think this is a big thing for OSU that people are going to realize later on, because a game like this where Isaac Likely and other guys are just taking control and scoring almost all the points, making almost all the plays, it's going to really be big going forward.
There's even times where sometimes you want Isaac Likely, if he's on his game, you want him to be that
Right?
primary ball header. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at it, and that's not to take any credit away from Cade Cunningham, but that's to give credit to Isaac Likely and how he can be, once given his, reaching that ceiling. And when he's on his A game, he is fantastic. I mean, he has
Yeah.
just evolved so much as a player over the past couple of years.
Because now when you're a defense and you're scouting up this team, you've got to attack, Rondell Walker, Bryce Williams, Avery Anderson, Isaac Likely, Caleb Boone now, Matthew Alexander Moncrief. You see all these guys and what they've done all season. It's no more, hey, let's bully up Cade because CBS told me that Cade Cunningham's the only player on this team. No, I mean, again, coaches are not that stupid, but it looked like that early on, right? I mean, it looked like Cade was going to be the guy who's going to have a high usage rate, have the ball a lot, and that's how this team's going to evolve. And it was a good strategy early on, but it's not anymore because you see how many guys can do so many different things and not just catch and shoot off dribble drive. They can create their own shot. And now you can't just double, Cade recklessly because you have so many guys who can make plays.
Yeah, that's so true, and there are other guys in this team. I mean, it's such a cliche at the beginning of the season where people were talking about Cade Cunningham, the only one on this team. No, we knew all along that it was there's other players in the team, specifically when you look at some of these Boone twins. I mean, we alluded to it earlier when we talked about Keelan's rebounding abilities, but I mean, these two gentlemen are fantastic basketball players. Yesterday I want to sort of shine a spotlight into one particular play. There was, I believe it was Keelan Boone. He had a pump fake at the top of the key, and he easily drove in and dished it off to his brother. It was, I believe, in the first half, and it was impressive to watch because you like the brother to brother connection and you like that play style from Caleb Boone. Caleb Boone obviously having a very successful game the other day, putting up 14 points, getting a couple rebounds here and there, a couple assists, and his brother got him on one of those plays where he was able to score. And man, it was a sight to see. It's so fun to see it as a brother dynamic, but it's also fun to see it from this OSU offense perspective because man, Caleb Boone, when he's not in foul trouble, fantastic player.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, he talked about how his confidence struggles, before, but now you look at it and man, I mean, it's such a luxury because you look at a game like Kansas State and that's a staple for Caleb Boone. That's what you want him to do because
Yeah.
he got 14 points, right? Seven for 11 shooting. It wasn't just dump offs like that. That was maybe the only one that I can remember where it was, guard penetrating, soaking in the defense, and then passing off to a big. Besides that, if my memory serves me correct, it feels like every other, basket he had was off a post up, which is really good because you want that presence, right? Where you can just throw it down to a guy like Caleb Boone. And in offense like this, where teams want to switch so much, where defenses want to switch onto a Cade Cunningham, not let him get any advantages, where they want to help, you're going to have rotations and you're going to have small guys rotate onto a Caleb Boone. And something you've noticed with this offense from the very beginning was no matter who it is, whether it's Cade Cunningham, Bryce Williams, Avery Anderson, anytime a big man switches onto one of those guards, the first thing this team does, and I think this is a Mike Boynton philosophy I'm starting to learn, that he immediately hands it to that player who has a big switch onto him. And it's a good strategy, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
I said, Mike Boynton wants 3, 4, 5 playmakers out on the court, and that way, instead of having Caleb Boone, Matthew Alexander Moncrief, and say they switch a big man onto one of those bigs, not a big deal. But say you switch a big any sort of big from any of these teams onto Avery Anderson, onto Rondell Walker, let them go one on one. Either they're going to score, either they're going to have to bring help, and there's going to be someone who's going to be open, or the defense just goes out of sync. You make one pass, reverse the ball, someone's open, right? And it's something that OSU has done so well, because even that TCU game, if I went back and watched. Okay, why did Bryce Williams take that last shot and not Cade Cunningham? If you notice, Kevin Samuel, the big 7-foot center, switched on to Bryce Williams. What does
Mhm.
Cade Cunningham do? Without hesitation, hands Bryce Williams the ball, and it worked, right? Bryce Williams got to the basket. He just missed a shot, but the theory works, right? And that's something OSU does, and it works both ways. The reason I bring this up is with Caleb Boone. When that happens, the small guys, the guards, the 6', 6'3" guys are going to go onto Caleb Boone. But even when they don't, Caleb Boone was posting up against big men, right? Caleb Boone's been doing that all season long. And you get him the ball, and he's really developed well along the season, because early on, something I really noticed was Caleb Boone always goes right. When the post took, he was always going to the right. He had the little, even when he went to his left, he was shooting with his right hand.
Yeah.
He would do up and under move with his
Sounds like
left
me.
hand. He would do the little up and under move, and it would be left, but then he would go with his right. He always wanted to go with his right, and that kind of hindered him a little bit, not like
Yeah.
crazy amounts, but it is a bad thing, right? You want your big man to be able to go with either hand. And against Kansas State, you saw the left hand come several times, which is something I was impressed with. And you just see it. I mean, you got the confidence back up for sure. You already know the size, the athleticism. You can run in transition. You can grab lobs. I mean, you can finish lobs. Excuse me. And this is a big thing for this development of this team, because you just want as many scores as possible, right? You have a guy in Caleb Boone who can set picks and go. I've seen him get stronger in that aspect to set better picks, but he can run, right? What he lacks in strength, he's got in athleticism to rim run. He can run in transition, and now he can post up a little bit, and that's big because you have more and more guys who you just can't double Cade Cunningham for.
That's so true. Yeah. And, this team has had to adapt to situations, right? We talk about the size all the time. I mean, to get it in different ways, to get this scoring, like you said, in many different ways, for Caleb Boone to be able to go off the pick and roll, go off the, down low in the post up opportunities. They're getting it in different ways. And that's what's really, that's why you're seeing this offense sort of explode lately, right? And in addition to that, you also have, whether it's Caleb Boone or Isaac Likely down low. On the outside, too, you're also seeing Rondell Walker, as I talked about earlier, with the way he was able to shoot the other day. Rondell Walker has been amazing this season. I mean, one of my probably biggest surprise of the season. I guess Bryce Williams actually gets that so far, but when you think
Yeah.
about Rondell Walker and what he's been able to do, as a true freshman on this team, he looks really, really, really good. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
And it's not a surprise because of talent. It's like you allude to, it's a surprise because of how many guys are on this team, right?
Yeah,
And for a true freshman to come in, again, freshmen a lot of times don't play defense, right? I
yeah.
mean, that's something that's bad, but that happens in college basketball because they're so used to being the best offensive guy on the floor for most of their teams. But Rondo Walker, since high school at PC West, has been taking pride in his defense. His defensive IQ is off the charts. His offensive IQ is off the charts. He's so long. He's got the knowledge of a point guard, and his motor is off the charts. Like, he plays so hard all times. But that defense is the reason he's getting the starting lineup. The offense is the reason he stays, right?
Yeah.
Um, as in he stays on the court, because you see the way he's shooting, that helps this team, that helps the spacing. The way his first step is lethal to me. That might be the best first step on this team. Other guys might have better strength and better finishing ability and so on, but that does not to knock Rondell Walker's finishing ability. He's
Yeah.
got deceptive strength. and his first step is, I mean, lethal, right? And when you
Mhm.
pair that with the shooting, guys have to close out on him. Then suddenly he can get by them. He's a good passer as well, something that you don't see a lot of because he doesn't get a lot of touches. But I mean, you see it. But what's most interesting to me is to close up the second half. I didn't see how many minutes are left. I'm guessing maybe 10. Rondell Walker was on the floor for all 10 of them, right? It
Yeah.
felt like the guys are on the floor, they stuck there, and he was there. I mean, you see that they call him the energizer, right? He is an important part of this team. It's a big thing that you can bring a guy like that off the bench. You can start him if you need to. He's a very good player, and he had a big impact this game.
Yeah, and he's been having many impacts throughout so many games this season, and he's like you said, he's getting the minutes too. I mean, that's the thing that's really eye opening about this team. You know, is that there's so many different ways you can go with this team in terms of rotation. I feel like many players in this team, they get the adequate amount of minutes, but there's some games here and there where you'll see some players get a little bit less. I think Farron Flavors had that finger issue earlier. That's sort of the reason he was limited in the past couple of games. Other players, here and there, just having interesting, I guess, minutes decisions. Sometimes Bernard Kuma starts. Um, what do you think of the way Mike Boyd's been able to rotate some of these players so far?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it now, and we're coming to a crunch time, to a place where Mike Boynton's starting to figure out. They've really slimmed it down to 8-man rotation, obviously without Farron with
Yeah.
his injury issues, but also he struggled, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a fact as well. He hasn't played. I mean, he's been struggling from three, which is the main reason you brought him in, right? Which is a tough blow for this team because it's just another shooter you want with this team. But yeah, I mean, you have Keelan Boone, Caleb Boone. I mean, Caleb might just get his starting spot back now, right?
Yeah.
Matthew Alexander Moncrief has been excellent starting or coming off the bench, right? He's an energy guy as well. Great footwork. You're starting to see the rotation slim down. Rondell, Bryce starting, Avery Anderson, and you see the reason a lot of these guys start, right. Obviously, Cade, Isaac, likely you're never going to start, but also they're defensive monsters. Bryce Williams has been lethal on defense. I swear, he knows where the defense. He's like he knows where the offense is going before he is. I mean, like he's
Yeah.
already there, right? Like he's like mimicking their moments. He's like
That's
psychic.
so true.
And then obviously Avery Anderson is one of their best defenders, very underrated in that aspect because he's small, but he's very good. He's so quick. His short burst. I mean, his lateral quickness is off the charts as well. You have Caleb Boone, I think will come back in the starting lineup next game. Matthew Alexander Moncrief. You just look at this team, it's starting to slim down. Donovan Williams is kind of out of the rotation. Bernard is really not in the rotation. He starts some games and plays 2 minutes. I mean,
Yeah. It's so
he's really
weird.
not. Yeah, he comes in sometimes, but he's not in the rotation much. The only thing I think he really has over everyone else is he sets better picks because he's so big, but
Yeah.
I don't think the other aspects of his game, come together. But to help him play many minutes. Let's see what happens when Farron gets healthy. But right now, it's slimming down to 8 mans. But I think guys are very well conditioned. You see the way they're playing, how hard they play, because that's where it shows up first. The defense. The defense is where tired legs show up first. For guys like Avery Anderson and Bryce Williams and Rondell to continue to play hard on defense, late in the second half, just shows that they are so well conditioned. And I think it's a testament to this team and just you're. It's always good if you're able to run 8, 9 people, however you're able to do it. Obviously, depth is important and it's
Mhm.
key and it's good, but to have your guys to trust them in all aspects defense, shooting, offense, rebounding, everything, rotation, IQ you got a good thing going.
I guess it was probably 2 years ago now when Mike Boynton kicked all those players off the team. And then in addition to that, had a couple injuries here and there. And I remember towards the end of the season, there was a point where Trey Reeves, it was even a big loss that Trey Reeves was out for
Right.
the year, and it was so bizarre because it's like Mike Boynton, having experience doing that.
Yep.
This is the point I'm getting at, is that him having experience, struggling with having a lot of players on his team, having all these rotations. I think that's finally paying dividends, and that's finally proving to be crucial experience now that he's in this season where he has so much talent, so much I guess stamina from this roster,
Yep.
and there's just so much to go around, and all these players, even if you run like an 8-man rotation, it's still fine and it still works, and
Yeah.
it's going well. 9-3 on the season so far. OSU is doing a good job.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's nothing wrong with the 8-man rotation. Obviously, you like more depth, but it's not to say these guys aren't good, right? I mean, you have Donovan Williams, you have Bernard, who's shown some quality minutes at times, right? They've shown they're able to do some stuff. You obviously know their talent from high school, especially Donovan Williams. But it's a thing where it just shows like get who you're confident with and get with it. And Mike Boyne's confident that he's chilling, right? This is a good
Yeah,
team. We've seen what they're doing as of late. They've been competitive in every game. That's the main takeaway.
that's the main takeaway, and that's what you're going to see all season long. I think this team is just going to continuously improve under this Mike Boynton system. Now, a huge test next or tomorrow rather. Kansas Jayhawks. OSU's had success against them in the past. Bill Self, obviously, OSU alum. OSU's got a tough stretch of games. Kansas, OU, West Virginia. It's going to be a crucial stretch for them on this season. Maybe they'll even get an upset or two. We'll have it covered.
As far as I'm concerned, every stretch is a tough stretch.
Look at this guy, man. He is wild. But yeah, you are 100% accurate in that. So we will have all that coverage for you. We will have it right here on Deep in the Novo. Thank you once again for tuning in to all of our OSU coverage. For more of it, go to Okali.com, at Okali on Twitter, and at Okali Sports on Twitter. For Ryan Novozinsky, joined here as always by the lovely Sudeep Tumma. Have a great day.